Here's Tiger here. Well, I've been working on my 3D printer. It's a resin 3D printer made by Kudo. It's called the Bean. And lately I've had some ups and downs. Just the thing about resin printers, if you don't like the smell of chemicals, don't get one. um, yes, there are some resins that smell less and are less, I guess, less toxic, but they all smell no matter what. Also, 3D printers, it's still a trial by error process. Even with, and I don't own a FDM printer, which is the type that melts plastic and puts it down layer by layer. But from everything that I've read, listened to podcasts and videos, they still have a lot of trial and error procedures to go through. Here is my setup. It's in the garage. Nothing pretty. Just a little space. Just need to, well, like everybody else's garage, you need to clear it up and make more room. But this is my spot. And currently, I am using Monoprice Rapid UV printer resin. Okay, they suggest using their own proprietary resin. I guess they call it 3DSR. But this Monoprice compared to this, in terms of half the price, 1/3 of the price, at least. And the other thing, this one seems to smell a lot less than this one, by 3 times less. So anyway, but it does still smell. And the miniature you saw back there, here. I've been working on for quite a while. Let's see, today's Wednesday, since a week. I've been working on it for a week. I had not tried the Monoprice resin before, and so it was a learning process to get the settings right. With any 3D printer, you have various settings, layer lifts, amount of exposure, etc., speed of the printer, and well, this was it wasn't any less difficult. And I did try another resin before the Monoprice, but I wasn't as happy with the results. And with the Monoprice, I thought I had some settings that somebody had written, but it turned out it wasn't. But I had already moved on from the Elegoo. This is Elegoo's resin, Gray. I tried it, and I got lousy results out of it. So I moved on to the Monoprice, primarily because I had read a lot of reviews that said that it was really easy to use and worked really well. And I think they actually mentioned the Bean 3D printer as one Monoprice as a substitute for the Bean 3D printer by Kudo. So here are some of the samples, the better samples of prints that I did with the Monoprice resin. The first one shows a very good example of some of the problems I had with using the chai tube support system or chai tube system. And if you notice, there's a lot of layering going on. And you can see that, well, in here you can see that there's some layers, and they looked exactly like the base here. I still use the chai tube software to add supports, but I didn't use it to create the zip file for the bean. In other words, the slicer. I didn't use the slicer. Ultimately, I did do a lot of trial and error using the engineering and the engineering tough and the hard settings that are in the bean software. Not the slicer, but the actual printing software. And finally, I fooled around with some settings, which I'll show up on screen here, and finally got something that was really hard. And this is actually quite, I'm pressing really hard with my thumb here. You can see that it's not really flexing that much. So, and I stopped at ankle height, and that's why this wasn't a bad print. Well, it probably would have ultimately been a bad print, but I stopped there because this without supports, and I knew that it was going to need supports. So, and here's the picture of the model as it should be. And so then I added supports using chai tube, but then used the slicer from Kudo, which is called Slicer. And I did a print with some supports straight up and down, and then realized, well, it isn't going to work so much. So then I angled it at 45 degrees, more or less, or maybe 42 degrees. And so anyway, I broke this piece off, and it's actually really soft. And the model itself is actually pretty hard. But as you can see, the arm did not come out. Okay. Oh, and that's the reason I added supports and angled it, because when I did the original, this was just a straight print, and I noticed the leg didn't come out and the guitar didn't come out. So that's why I went to add supports. So I went to add supports, and then I remembered that they said if you angle it at 45 degrees or so, you get a better print. Well, I did get a better print, especially with the supports, but you can see the backpack is flattened because there was no support back there. Okay, and the guitar had no support because I just used the regular add support in chai tube, and it didn't indicate to have any support for the guitar. And then I did it again. I was having problems with well, the softness here. This was actually quite soft, and now it's hardened. And so I increased the time.
the exposure time, and also the lift, because in between from this one to this one, I was having a lot of sticking after the base level. And so I ended up printing a lot of bases, or close to bases, and it wasn't completely lifting off the Teflon FAP film. And so I had to increase the lift height. And finally, in the end, went to 6 millimeters of lift height, which of course increases the print time significantly. Because after 50, there was another 700. After 50 layers, there was still another 700 layers to go, from 3 millimeters to 6 millimeters. And of course, it doesn't do it quickly because the lift speed is slow. But then I decided, well, I'm still getting a flattened backpack, and I couldn't understand why that was happening. And then the guitar still wasn't printing, even though I had supports going to the guitar. And then I thought about it, and I go, well, I remember having some good results, just having it when it was just straight, without angling the model. So I left the model in the normal position, and then went to Chai Tube and added supports to the arms, and I also added a support to the backpack, and lo and behold, I got a very good print. The only thing that came out kind of strangely is the arm. There's a little dip there that and I only assume it's because there was no support going across, and it's angling down, so the overhang was too much for it to handle. I'm actually surprised that it actually worked, and it actually printed that arm. One of the things that is strange to me is that you see the supports don't actually touch the guitar or the arm with the cup, and I'm not sure how's that entirely possible, that it did an actual good print at the top. So, but it seems to work at these settings. I will probably increase the diameter of the supports so that they print fully.